How to be successful in one of Mr. LeDuc's classes. Well, let's take a look at this. Number one, we're looking to improve each student's individual workflow, creativity, and happiness. That's the goal of the class. So let me take you through the structure and the process, and this will be able to hopefully help you support a student who's in my class. So first off, thanks for being here. How to be successful? Well, let's take a look at workflow. Here's the process. Students participate in our Zoom meetings that we have during the week. They update their GTD trusted system. That is a getting things done process. It could be a notebook, a planner, digital or paper-based, but the idea is that they have to have a to-do list for all their classwork, not just my class, but that has been the biggest issue for students, is that they need to have that. And so I am working with them every week. In the first meeting of the week, we take a look at our GTD systems, what we've got going on for the week, and so on. Because in all my classes, kids work on media projects and they have to collaborate. They have to set goals for themselves. They have to be dependable. They have to be organized. And we're trying to do all that, but keep the stress level down. And that's what the GTD process helps us with. What they do is they copy and paste a worksheet, you can see number 3 here, into their blog. I will show you their blog process that we do in class in just a little bit. And then they work on the sections of the blog we call rooms. They're imaginary, but we set timers, and I'll explain that in a little bit as well. And then they publish their work by publishing their blog post, and that's how they turn in their work. Once they publish, I can see the work. So let's stop. All right, here we go. This is the image I have in the background of our Zoom meetings each week. It has the agenda. Linnell Burmark, a visual literacy expert, said that humans lose focus within 60 seconds if they don't have a visual reminder. So on the right side of the screen here, you can see that I am trying to help the kids understand what we're about to do this week and to complete the material. We also talk about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. These are the key ingredients for people to be happy in the world of work. And so we work on these particular elements, and I like to identify those as we work through projects each week. Let's stop for a second. Wait, what? Did I just rickroll you? Okay, I promise not to do it again, but thanks for being here. I couldn't help myself. Okay, stop. Here we go. Getting things done review. Essentially, we need students to get stuff out of their head and into a trusted system. Again, that could be a piece of paper, a notebook, some kind of digital component that has like a to-do list. And it's important because they need to manage lots of moving parts. And in all my classes, there's going to be many things they need to accomplish over time. And so what I have on the screen now is a Trello board that is based on getting things done. And essentially getting things done is, what do you have to accomplish? Is it a task that can be done quickly, or is it a larger thing like a project that needs to be broken down? All you need to know is that we have a process in class, and I'm supporting students to continually develop their system to make it as complex as needed to satisfy the work they need to do for school. Simple is good, but we add some complexity as needed. For instance, a calendar that might remind them to get things done. We will probably add that in if that is something that's going to be helpful for them. All right, let's stop and let's take a look. What we do in this class is try to structure time and intention because it's about focus, one thing at a time. Students are having a hard time doing this. And so I remind them every week about setting an intention and then setting a timer. And it doesn't matter what timer, but they have to set timers and set goals. We do this because we want them to have more autonomy. It's their how. And the GTD is helping with that process. Okay? Now, we also talk about what kind of brain chemistry is being activated. And we want to understand this because if they understand that in number 2 on the screen here, all these things that are affecting us, how can they have some agency, some leverage, some power over this so they can better combat some of these things that happen to them? And so on the bottom section here in number 3, you can see these various activities, especially exercise, are things that students can do. And I want them to schedule that in throughout their week so that they can, instead of being reactive to all the things coming at them, be proactive. We're using the information you just saw from this website. Really neat site. You should check it out. It's amazing. Really good stuff. All right. Now, let's review the blog post. What I do each week is I have a weekly video that explains what to do for the week. And we're going to skip past this because just know that I have that every week. Every week I show them example work from other students in class, and I explain to them how to delete instructions when they're done with my worksheets, which you're about to see. So let's go take a look at that. Here we are in one of my classes' Schoology folder. In Schoology, at the top, I have a weekly overview video, and this is part of a playlist that I have for each week, and this gives the big picture of what's happening that week. Below that, we have all the details for the course. There's a tracking sheet that kids can check off work as they're working throughout the year. That's something they can maintain. I also look at it to track it, so it's just something they have access to. But down below here is where it gets real fun. Each folder has the material from that week. The current week will have the information, and it'll be at the top. It'll be outside the previous week folder. And you can see here it has an overview video, and it has other activities that I want kids to complete and some optional things that I'll have here. We go over this in the Zoom meeting, but let's click in here. Let's say a student can't make the Zoom meeting, or they're trying to make up previous work. If they go into the folder, they can watch the overview video for the week, and that will explain the rest of the material in the folder. Okay. The other thing is I start each of these with a verb so that the kids know what they need to do. So for instance, this week, fill in Brad's yearbook survey. This was an optional thing that Brad, one of my students, is doing for yearbook. Took less than a minute. This one, every week we do a quick check-in with their GTD system, and I want them to take a screenshot or a picture or type in some material to reflect where they're at. And the reason we do this in a discussion board is that I want the students to see each other's work so they can geek off each other and be inspired. Some kids are really advanced with this. Other kids are emerging into it, and I want them to be supported and feel good about where they're at. Down here, this particular week, I had another discussion board item about their goals, what they want to accomplish, and then what they value or would want to value by the end of the course. And that only took a couple of minutes to complete. And then I have the rest of these are just resources that I put in here that I thought would be interesting for the kids to explore. And a lot of times we explore these during the Zoom meeting together. So they do not have to complete them. They're not graded, but they're enrichment for the course. Okay, now let's take a look at the blog post. Well, let's do that through a particular assignment. So let's go back out to the upper level of Schoology. And let's look at a previous week. Let's say a student is making up previous work. If they clicked into the week 11 folder, you can see join remind. I've asked all students to do that so I can send out reminders to them about key assignments that are coming up. That's optional, but it's really nice. Here's the overview video. In fact, let's go into this folder. I click on the title of the folder to go into it. And you can see again, it's the verb here to join. Watch the overview video. That will give them details. And then here's their GTD screenshot or image or description. And then here is the main assignment. Main assignments are worth 4 points. These discussion boards are worth 1 point. So everything in the gradebook is either a 4 point or a 1 point. 1 point means yes, no, participatory, and the 4 point is quality, meaning there's numerous things they need to do to get all 4 points. And the description and details are here for the assignment, and this is pretty much the structure every week. They click on this, and it takes them over to a blog post that looks like this. And this is essentially a worksheet. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out so you can see what it looks like. Now it's very long, and this is deliberately put together because what we're mimicking here is a production cycle project that needs to be broken down into smaller chunks. And we're going to help students do that by setting timers and focusing on one thing at a time. So what they would do is copy and paste this whole thing into their blog. So I would copy that and then paste it into their blog. Now, when I say blog, you might say to yourself, what is this blog thing? Well, students have been invited into our class blog, and here's the link. If your student doesn't have that, just email me and I'll send you the link to this, and this will help them get a blog established. Essentially, they go to edublogs.org and they create an account with that code. Once they do that, then they'll have a blog and I'll be able to see it. And when they do that, the blog itself, when they're in editing mode, looks like this. And when they go into the blog, they create a new post and they copy and paste all that material that I just copied, they'll paste it into a blog post. Oh, that's not it. Let's go back here and look here. Here we go. Here's a sample. Let me zoom back out again. I like to zoom out. I'm doing Command minus on a Mac, or it could be Control minus on a PC or a Chromebook. I copy this, and zooming out is not necessary. I mean, I could have copied this just as easily that way. But what I do is I come back over here and then I paste it. I just did Edit Paste or Command V as in Victor, and I have all the content in here. And then the students follow the directions. And so the directions are essentially title of the blog post this. So I'm going to put that up here. And I've trained the students on this, but I'm just showing you this because I want you to be aware that basically they follow my directions and then delete all my directions when they're done following them. And the image here is just to grab attention at the top of the blog post. My instructions that I just deleted showed them how to put their own image there if they would like to, but it's optional. So I'm going to just leave that one. This information, I usually have a quote that's something inspiring, kind of gives the theme of the week. They write a summary, and the summary is done at the end of the week, last when they're all done. And they write just 1 to 2 sentences of what they did this week, and then delete my directions. And so then they would write their material here. We have a number of rooms, and the rooms are to mimic what it's like to actually be here at school. And the intention with the room is to set a timer for a certain period of time and then do the activity that is represented within the room. So for instance, in the practice room, set a timer for 30 minutes and then either learn more about JavaScript or C# depending on which game engine they're working on. Here are the tutorials that we are following. And then right here it says write the latest lesson that was completed, and then delete my directions. So they go like here, and they would write the latest lesson. So that's what they would do. And then delete the rest of my directions. And for instance, if they didn't work on C#, they would just delete this. Okay? And it follows through for the rest of the imaginary rooms. In the classroom, we learn about theory and analysis. And in the practice room, it was working on a specific skill, in this case, programming. And it depends on which class, but we have skills in the film class and in School of Rock as well. But each one of the classes are structured with similar rooms. So classrooms are for theory, the lab is for practicing the theory. Outside is just what it sounds like. We want them to go outside and to exercise if that's safe, but I want them to contemplate either creativity or productivity. And on this week, I showed them the information I've already shared with you about brain chemistry and how to support the positive chemistry. And so I said, take a look at this document and then go for a 15-minute walk and contemplate it and then come back in and write a small paragraph. Okay, and in the studio, which is our creative area where they're making things, they'll do an activity. They'll read my directions, finish, and potentially publish the work here if it says so, or they'll publish it wherever they're working. In this case, in game design, they were working in a game engine called Construct, and they were going to add a screenshot to the Schoology folder. The directions were here, actually further down, right here. So right here, it's just but everything I just said, add it to Construct, the Construct stuff to their Schoology folder, and then they could actually delete this whole section because it says delete the whole section. Then at the end of the blog post, they write a reflection on what they learned this week and at least one problem they solved. And we reinforce this every week, talking about problem solving is really why we're here. And we want the problems to be attainable, something that's doable, not overwhelming. And they are doing lots of problem solving. And I remind them that they do incredible problem solving in games. So if they play games at all, they already have a very solid skill set for problem solving within that environment. And I ask them to transfer those skills over to what we're doing here in class. And that's usually a very positive conversation, and a lot of ahas happen with them saying, oh yeah, if I could beat a level in game X, I could take the same strategies and apply it to figuring out how to do Mr. LeDuc's work here or any class work. Lastly, we have a survey that I want students to fill in, and we do this each week, and the survey essentially asks them, how was the week? And this information is something that I use to alter the class, modify things. And so was the content good? Did they like that? and then they can write something if they want. How was the process of the week? So with the blogs or other things that we did, and then some feedback if they want. And then lastly, in the imaginary rooms we have, how much time did they spend in each room? The idea is that I put a time limit in there, and I do not want them to go further or longer than that time. And all the times that I put into the imaginary rooms add up to 3 hours total for the week. And that includes our Zoom meeting. So I include the time for the Zoom meeting and then the extra time here. So the intention is that they not spend more time than what the time has required for the room. So for instance, if the timer was set for 15 minutes, when the timer goes off, I want them to stop and move on to the next room and finish their thought and then move on. So I'm gathering this data each week to see how much time are they spending on the various activities. And later on in the course, we don't work in all the rooms. They get to specialize in the rooms of their interest. And so maybe they want to practice more skills, be a better programmer, a better guitarist, or a better editor for filmmaking. Or maybe they want to learn more about theory and practice that. Maybe they want to learn more about creativity. And I have some activities here about creative process or productivity and teaming and management. Or maybe they want to, be more creative and just make more stuff and then produce more stuff. Because the control room is where we publish our work. I didn't say that earlier, but that's essentially what the control room is for, is getting the work out to people to see so we can get feedback. And then they click next. So that is the process. Now, what's really neat about this is that by doing this work each week, they're taking a complex project, which is the blog post, breaking it down into each imaginary room, setting a timer and approaching those tasks with a single focus. When the timer goes off, they move on to the next room. The last thing I wanted to show you that was in the presentation is that I have sample work in each blog. So if you're saying, well, what does this look like when you're done? Well, here's Christian's blog post. What you can see is the summary, his review of working on C# programming in SoloLearn, his classroom activity. He just gave a reflection about learning about Construct 3 in the lab. It was just to follow a tutorial for about 5 minutes, and he did that. He left the image here, which is fine. Outside, he left this image, which is great. That's optional, and this image as well. And he wrote a reflection about what he thought when he, did the exercise for this. In the studio, he published his work in Construct, and he wrote a brief summary of what he did for the 45 minutes. Control room, he published it already to the discussion board, so there was nothing he needed to do here. He just deleted my directions. And then what he learned and problems he solved, he added here, and he did the weekly review survey, and he could have either left this title here or deleted it. Wow. Well, I have to say, you survived. You made it all the way through me explaining the process for our class. Now, I know this was a long video, but trying to give a rundown of how things are structured, I want to know the why behind things. And so my hope is that now you understand the why, and then any support you're doing for any students or for yourself, if you're a student watching this, you'll understand what we're trying to accomplish. And thank you for watching, and always email me if you have further questions.